Hello and welcome to episode 256 of Fergo and the Freak. I'm that bloke from Rugby League Project, Andrew Ferguson. You can find me on Twitter at AndrewRLP. Joining me as always is the glorious League Freak. You can find on Twitter at League Freak. How you going there, mate?
Going very well, Andrew, the real deal Ferguson. How are you?
Reeling and dealing as always.
Excellent. That's the way that the people love it.
They do love it. You know what else they love?
Let me guess.
Have a guess.
Smooth balls.
Man, nailed it in one.
Well, two anyway.
Two even, yes.
You know, if you go to manscaped.com, right, and you put in our code, which is exclusive to our podcast, which is NRL, just 3 letters, NRL, you get 20% off and free shipping on everything that is sold at manscaped.com. From the Lawnmower 3.0, you can get the package, the perfect package 3.0. We recommend the performance package because it comes with everything. And it is the number one way to get your boys looking good for summer. We're coming into summer, into the Southern Hemisphere. You don't need a bush. I mean, I know you've grown your fucking COVID bush. You got to get rid of that, fellas. Okay?
Yeah. It's party time now.
Exactly. You got to be able to get that sucker out and be proud of it.
Yeah.
So go to manscaped.com, put in the code NRL, 20% off, free shipping. You get a 30-day money-back guarantee with all of their products because they know you won't need to take anything back because it is all of the best in personal care. And,
I mean, it's November. Let's be honest. It's when the cricket starts. It's also when the streaking starts.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go out there looking like, someone's buddy hedge. Get
exactly.
that shit in order.
Yeah, you've got to get ready and prepare your pitch. And that's what we all should be doing. That's why we go to manscaped.com.
As you should.
Mm.
As you should. Now, not much in the world of rugby league news at the moment, but one thing that has come out is the International Rugby League has decided that there will be no Golden Boot awarded this year.
Yeah, well, considering that, the rugby league played at international level. Oh, wait, there was games. So they've just ignored them.
There was 2 games, 1 official game.
Yep.
So therefore, we met the target to have a International Rugby League Player of the Year award named.
Yes.
Now, as we've discussed before, the rules and the boundaries as to who wins the Golden Boot have been shifted sort of biannually.
Yeah, pretty much. They've moved them all over the place depending on how they want the award to be handed out. Some of the award winners are absolutely ridiculous and quite honestly pathetic.
Yeah, it was surprising they didn't come out with a possible different sort of protocol this year around to try and make sure they're still awarded it to someone.
Yeah, I thought that they would probably give it to I really thought they'd give it to a Super League player.
Yeah, given they've played more games. I must admit, I had my money on Lachlan Coote nailing it.
Yeah, mine was on Bevan French.
He's had a pretty solid year.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's also you could get a situation where they could have said, well, French guy won it that one year. Bevan French.
Yeah. That could have been the closest French would ever get to winning the award, I guess.
Possibly. For now, they will eventually overtake the Poms. I've been saying that for a long time.
They're getting there.
Yeah. They're
baby steps.
Yeah.
So they've decided not to award a 21. As we know, Netherlands played Germany in September.
We watched it.
We commentated the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said on Twitter that I think that given that there was an international game, we should have whoever we deem to be the best player from that match should be the Golden Boot Player of the Year award.
I agree.
If this is the hill that the game wants to set itself up on as in regards to awarding this award, then they need to stick to it. And just because Australia, England, and half the Pacific nations aren't able to have a player in there, you made that bed. You've got to lie in that bed.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of us are critical of them when they said, it's only international games only. This is why it was foolish to make it international games only.
Yeah, and the thing that has always been the ridiculous thing about this award, and it's been ridiculous for many different reasons, of many different years, but the reason that it is ridiculous lately over the last few years is that, there's been times where it's been awarded as soon as Australia's played their last game or England's played their last game, and we've still had internationals after that point.
Yes.
And the International Rugby League and the people who run this award have been just so dismissive of the wider game. And that's why, it is so ridiculous, because it has either been a case of, well, we're going to give it to somebody in the Australian team if they jump out at us, and we would really love to give it to someone from England, even though that's completely ridiculous. And I just don't like the way it's been so dismissive of other players in other nations. This is an award that Tommy Mackinson has won and Jason Taumalolo has not.
Yes. Actually, I was going to ask you just for a bit of fun. Can you name all of the Englishmen who have won the Golden Boot?
Look, I know the list. I've seen the list up until Andy Farrell, right? So I don't know the top of the list. I'm guessing that, what's that? He's super forgettable. But I'm going to say that prick with the moustache, did he win it? You know exactly who I'm talking about too, don't you?
Are we talking back in the earlier days?
Yeah.
Yeah. Gary Schofield?
That's his name.
Yes, he won it in 1990.
Okay, so who's the only other one I would guess? Oh, no, Ellery Hanley won it.
Ellery Hanley won it. And my God, that was an unbelievable season he had in 88.
Ellery Hanley deserved it.
Absolutely.
That prick with the moustache didn't, though.
Well, yes and no. It was probably one of his better seasons.
And then Andrew Farrell winning it was
Andy Farrell got in 2004.
Disgrace. And then promptly left immediately to go and play in the centres in rugby union.
There's been 2 Englishmen since then. You've already named one in Mackinson. Who was the other one?
Yeah. Kevin Cenfield.
That's the one. You're old, mate.
Yeah, Mr. Barely a first grader in Australia, Kevin Cenfield.
Mr. Reliable.
Remember all of the amazing things that he did at international level?
Huh?
Yeah, exactly. I think the only game he won against Australia international level, he come off the bench.
Correct, and it was near the start of his career from memory.
There you go.
Let's have a look at that. Cenfield.
And people will say, look, why do you only bring up their failures when that's the only thing they have? What are we supposed to talk about?
That's not their failure. That's their success.
Yeah, exactly.
We're talking about their good things here.
Yeah, probably ran on as a fucking hooker.
Oh, boy. There's been 5 Poms and only 5 Kiwis as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. And look, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck won it last year. And that was a bit ridiculous as well.
Sean Johnson in 2014.
From memory, that was ridiculous.
Benji Marshall 2010.
Yeah, he deserved it.
Yeah, that was impossible to ignore him on that one.
Yeah.
And Hugh McGahn, I think in 87 might have been equal. Yeah, he was equal with Peter Sterling.
Stacey Jones won it too.
Oh yeah, he did too. Just after Andrew Johns.
Yeah, he was overrated, Stacey Jones.
So there you go. And the rest were Aussies.
Yep. It's interesting because I have the King of Rugby League awards, right?
Yes.
I've never thought about the nationalities that have won it. So let's have a look. So,
well, obviously you're going to have a Scotsman in there.
Maybe not. So,
a Welshman?
No.
A New South Welshman?
Well, plenty of New South Welshmen. I tell you, okay, so Roger Tuivasa-Sheck won it in 2018. Last year, it's obviously James Tedesco. 2017, Jason Taumalolo. So straight away, we're starting to build up the different nationalities here.
Yeah, you didn't have Mackinson.
I didn't have Mackinson. I overlooked him, but there was a good reason, because he's terrible. Benji Marshall won it 1 year. I'm just going back through the list, seeing if there's any other nationalities that won it on here. No, that's it. So I've got one more nationality that's won the King of Rugby League award, then has won the Golden Boot award. How about that?
How far back did yours go?
Mine go back to 1993.
There you go.
Mm.
So if we actually go all the way back to 88, you'll actually get an Englishman in there.
Yeah, you're right, actually. Oh, yeah, 88, Ellery Handley. I don't think there'd be any problems with naming him. He's one of the best players in the world back then. He was one of the best players in the world for a long time, actually.
Yeah, but that year was just fucking smoking hot.
Yeah. It's interesting. I always think that a list like that you should be able to look at it and see who the absolute best of the best were over time. And I feel as though that's the difference between the Golden Boot Award, which doesn't do that, and the King Rugby League Award, which I'm willing to say you're part of now.
The King of Rugby League one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
we consult about it.
We do.
Yeah.
Business without notice here.
Yes.
Another award, that's been in the media briefly, was the Immortals.
Oh, yeah.
Peter V'landys came along and said that he's thinking about waiving the time since someone's retired before they get inducted into the immortality list, which is obviously a nod that he wants to give one to Cameron Smith straight away. And my suggestion around that is, before I go into my plan, which we've probably done before, is remember when Thurston and Lockyer and all those guys retired, and everyone was talking about, they'll be an immortal for sure, Yeah. And it's only been a few short years since then, and you don't hear people talk about them anymore.
Yeah, I agree. And even last year, it was, Cooper Cronk, he's possibly an immortal. It's like, he just isn't. He just isn't a very good player, but not an immortal.
Yeah. I'm not saying that Cameron Smith won't be. I'm fairly confident that Cameron Smith will become an immortal.
Yeah.
That, to me, that's a no-brainer. But it does show how quickly we move on from players after they're retired if there was something about them that may not have been, absolute out of this worldly about them. Like Cameron Smith is out of this world. There's no doubt about it. I mean, more games than anybody else. He's done it all in the middle. A shit ton of defence as well, and the highest point scorer the game's ever seen. And the most successful player the game's ever seen.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to overlook any of that. So, but you see someone like Jonathan Thurston, undoubtedly a great footballer, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
How many premierships did he win?
2.
There you go. And to me, and they're a long way apart.
Yeah. Very different circumstances too.
Exactly. And only featured, didn't get his side to a grand final too often. Rarely would probably be more accurate. And his last season he was a passenger. Yeah.
One season too many, unfortunately.
Yeah. That's not to say that he doesn't deserve to become an immortal. He definitely deserves to be in the discussion. But it does show how one season, especially if it's the last season, can make people look a lot differently on someone's career. Yes, it's recency bias, but that's why it's good to have that long gap after someone's retired before you start looking back on their career and find out whether they're going to be an immortal or not. Because if you look at it straight away, you'll always look at their last season and go, if they had a bit of a meh season, then you're going to go, they're not going to be an immortal. And you'll really pass them over.
Exactly. And look, I think over the course of my lifetime, like when I think of the immortal players that I've seen, it's like Wally Lewis was undoubtedly an immortal, with just not even question. I think Andrew Johns was definitely an immortal. I don't think that's a question, but some people do question it, and that's fine. I would say the only other one, and I know you wouldn't agree with me on this one, is Darren Lockyer. I think he was an immortal. And then the last one would be Cameron Smith.
I can handle Lockyer and Smith being inducted.
Yeah.
But as I said before, I think there's a lot of players who played the game between 1908 and the end of World War II who have been completely ignored.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous.
And people will say, oh, but we inducted Dave Brown, Daly Messenger, and Frank Burge. What more do you want? And going, that's 3 people in 45 years.
Mm.
Yeah, it's not accurate.
No.
How can you overlook so many other people that played in that region who the game was built around?
Mm.
And I know I've said it before, and I'm going to bang on about it. Is Duncan Thompson, man. He was regarded as the best halfback this country had ever seen from when he retired in the mid-20s up until 2000 when Andrew Johns took the title off him.
Yeah.
He taught Wayne Bennett skills on how to be a coach, which means so long as Wayne Bennett remains a coach, Duncan Thompson's legacy remains in the game on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Who else can say they've got a legacy that's lasted a century?
Yeah, exactly. And I would say another thing about the Immortals list is if you are a forward, good luck making it.
Exactly.
Because I would say the 2 best front rowers I've seen in my lifetime are Shane Webke and Glenn Lazarus. And I've never heard anyone even mention them as Immortals.
Nope.
And look, if somebody wanted to put them forward as an immortal, I would not question it for a second, because they were just. Whenever I judge a front rower now, they're the 2 players I judge them against. But they will probably never be immortals, and especially when you look at Lazarus and how many premiership winning teams were built around him, and like he turned up. We talk about someone like James Maloney as a winner. No one was a better winner than Glenn Lazarus.
Yeah, he was. I think that's about the thing that gets me about Lazarus. We all know he was a big unit, and he did a lot of heavy work, and he played an hour minimum every week. You know, phenomenal motor on him.
Yeah,
lugging that big frame around, and he did it as the game was going from its semi-professional phase into its full-time professional phase.
Yeah, and he was elite in both of them. Like he was probably, he's probably one of the few forwards front rowers that you could pick from the 80s and put him into today's game, and you would not only not lose anything, you'd have one of the best front rowers in the game today.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think that's a problem. Back rowers as well, they're difficult to get in. Hookers are. That's why Cameron Smith, his resume to become an immortal is so overwhelming, because it kind of has to be.
Yeah. Another one is wingers.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
No wingers in there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know I've said it before, but yeah, I had a system in place where I'd have 2 players from every decade would be inducted. And all you had to do to qualify was you had to play at least 1 game in that decade. So that would make up for those periods where you may have 3 players in 1 decade, and only 1 in a decade either side of it. You could just say, right, you go in the previous decade or you go in the one after, and we can have these other 2 here, and you can make it all balance out.
Yeah.
And it just made it, because you could do that, it also meant it became a bit more complicated picking who the Immortals are going to be. If you look at it now, who are you going to pick for the 2000 to 2010 period and the 2011 to 2020 period, when you've got the likes of Andrew Johns already in there, and then you can chuck in Brad Fittler, Darren Lockyer, Cameron Smith, obviously Billy Slater, Greg Inglis, Jonathan Thurston. You put in Cronk if you want. Tom Malolo could be in the conversation. We've just rattled 9 names off the top of our heads there. And there's going to be others.
Yeah, because I can't imagine, from what I've seen of him already, I can't imagine Tom Malolo will not be an immortal. Because he's breaking records for go forward in an era where there's never been more great forwards in the game. And you could pick him either in the last decade, I guess, 2010 to 2020, or the next decade. But I think you kind of have to pick him. I can't imagine not picking him. There'd have to be a bloody good player that would get ahead of him. So, and then you've like Cameron Smith, obviously. It's just so difficult. But I agree with you. By restricting it, it means that only the elite players get in, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and that's what you want. I think you also, if you could have a period where a player has to be retired for at least 10 years before they can be in the Hall of Fame, and also 10 years before they can be inducted in as an immortal, but they also have to be a Hall of Famer before they get made an immortal.
Yeah.
Make sure they go through all the steps. You can't have any fast tracking going on. That way you get rid of that recency bias.
Yeah, and the recency bias it's a rough one because you do need that disconnect from a player to be able to judge them fairly against their peers. And you also got to judge them. You've got to judge the time frame they were part of as much as them themselves as well, I believe.
Exactly. So should we go through what I've listed as the immortals under my concept?
Yeah, you know what? It'd be cool to... we haven't talked about this before. I think it would be cool to have these players, and you'd have to call them something other than immortals, I guess. But maybe we can put together something where these are like the elite players of all time. Like, would you like to do something like that?
Sure.
Okay, let's do that. So, but let's go through them. Like, tell me who the players are you would have.
All right, so to make this work, I've also starting with the 1900 to 1909 decade.
Okay.
Because the game started in essentially 1907 here.
Okay.
So in that period, I've got Daly Messenger and Arthur Halloway. 1910 to 1919, I've got Frank Burge and Duncan Thompson.
Yeah.
20s, Harold Horder and Jimmy Craig. 30s, Dave Brown and Herb Steinhort. 40s, Clive Churchill and Duncan Hall. 50s, Reg Gasnier and Norm Proven. 60s, Graham Langlands and Johnny Raper. 70s, Bob Fulton, Ken Irvine. 80s, Wally Lewis and Arthur Beetson. 90s, Mal Meninga and Andrew Johns. So now we get to the point of 2000 to 2009 because it's been a decade since that era ended.
Yeah.
So now we can decide who goes in the 2000 to 2009 decades. So you can pick anyone who played at least one game in that era. So that means someone like, I think Bradley Clyde would qualify if as an example. I'm not putting forward, but
Yeah. Brad Fittler would qualify.
Oh, definitely.
I guess Ricky Stewart probably would. Langer would. Webke, Lazarus. Oh, no, Lazarus retired in 99.
So I've already ruined that one for you.
No, that's fine. That's fine. See, it's a good thing. I find this is a good thing because by restricting it, you really have to think through it. You know?
And that's the thing. People think that by having it two people each decade, like one of the arguments I've had up against it was you'd be putting in someone who didn't deserve to be there. But I've not actually named anyone that doesn't deserve to be there.
I think you got to put Darren Lockyer in there.
Well, the way I look at it is if you look from 2000 to 2020, name who you think the four players would be in those 20 years.
Okay. I want you to do it too because this is your concept, all right? So I would say if I had to pick four players from those 20 years, I'd say one of them would have to be Darren Lockyer. One of them has to be Cameron Smith.
Yep.
You know what? I don't know if you'll agree with me on this. I feel like Greg Inglis would be one for me. And then the other one, it might be Benji Marshall.
See, I'd put Benji in there, but I know a lot of people don't like that idea because he only had one premiership, only played in 3 final series, I think. Well, for the West Tigers anyway. But
who would be your 4 players?
I'm a bit like you. I can't look past Darren Lockyer or Cameron Smith.
Yep.
The only 2 Australians that are, to my knowledge, that played 50 tests or more. Yep. That's something you can't overlook.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also have Brad Fittler in there.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm still debating on who the fourth would be, because there's also someone like Laurie Daly.
Yeah, he'd be able to make it.
He'd be in there. Andrew Eddinghausen.
Billy Slater.
Billy Slater.
I think Slater is definitely in that discussion.
Yeah, I mean, he's been compared with Clive Churchill.
Yeah.
He has to be in that discussion. And I'd probably be inclined to put Slater in the head of Inglis. But, it's a tough call.
Yeah, and you know what? And this is the thing. And this is what makes it so great. Because you say that, and I can't even say, nah. It's like, oh, yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. That's
the other thing you got going too is because it goes from, if Cameron Smith plays, no, actually it goes to 2019 is the second decade. So because Cameron Smith played in 2020, he can qualify for 2020 to 2029. You know what I mean? So that means that you can forego him and put him in the next decade, which means, unfortunately, you'll only be able to pick one other player from the next 10 years.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's pretty rough.
But that could be Tuivasa-Sheck. It could be Tedesco. It could be Taumalolo. So even when you look at it that way, you're still not pruning out. You're still not including someone who doesn't deserve to be in that conversation.
Yeah,
we've just named three pretty bloody decent players.
Yeah,
going to be up there in that conversation.
I think if say you're projecting for next decade, I think that Tedesco and Taumalolo, take Cameron Smith out of it, but those two definitely are on that sort of trajectory. I think Taumalolo more so. I think Tedesco's still got things he needs to do. And you never know who's coming as well, which is the cool thing about rugby league.
I think we don't know what's going to happen with the likes of Kalen Ponga, who's had such a great start to his career already.
Yeah.
Pappenhausen's another one. Harry Grant.
Exactly. Yeah, Harry Grant. I mean,
Cleary.
Look what he's done in 1 year.
Yeah. Nathan Cleary, he's still only young and already played, Origins and played in the grand final already.
Yeah, if in 10 years' time we could be saying, well, Cleary's already the top point scorer of all time,
Yeah.
And he's got another, by then he could have another 6 seasons ahead of him. You never know with the way that things progress.
And if little feats like being a top point scorer or try scorer in the game's history is something that gets viewed as something that deserves to be prominent for an immortal, then you've also going to have to leave space for the very real possibility that Jared Croker could become the top point scorer.
Yeah, that's true, but I think that it's an addition to a resume,
I agree.
Like, say Cameron Smith wasn't a goal kicker at all. It wouldn't change how I felt about him being an immortal.
Yeah.
Would it change your opinion of it?
No, like you, I think it definitely needs to be the point scoring stuff like that has to be. It's like a cherry on top sort of thing. It's not the main reason why you pick them.
Yeah, exactly.
See, I'm probably looking at Fittler, Lockyer, Smith, and Slater. I think would be my 4.
Smith and Slater. I can't argue with it. I can't argue with it at that point. I really can't. Look, Greg Inglis is going to play on next year. Put him in the next 10 years.
Yeah, that's what you could do. You can just go then. But yeah, the problem with that obviously is I've just named essentially 4 playmakers.
Yeah, and where did the props come into it? Where did the back rows come into it?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Who do you drop out of those 4? And which 4 do you bring in to replace them with? That's such a tough one.
It really, really is.
Would Nathan Hindmarsh make that list?
See, he wouldn't make my conversation. What about you?
Probably not.
Okay. So what forwards? Let's look at just forwards. What forwards would be in your conversation?
I know you may not like it, but given that he achieved everything there is to achieve, Paul Gallen.
Yeah, I don't like that.
No, I know you don't. But the
Yeah.
thing is, if you look at purely statistically what he achieved on the field, he did play at the elite level a lot, a lot of tests. He won an Origin Series with Australia. Sure, Origin Series with New South Wales. Sure, he lost quite a lot of them, but he did captain a winning Origin side. He did captain a team that won a premiership. These are all big ticks. And these are the ticks that they usually try and say that these are things you need to do as a bare minimum to be considered an immortal. That was until Frank Birch got in because he never won a premiership. But, you know, there's those things. Obviously, yeah, Benji Marshall, as we said.
But just looking at forwards, right?
Okay, just forwards. The other ones,
You got
Webke,
to put Steve Menzies' name up.
Menzies, Sivana
Siva, yeah.
Luke Lewis.
See, he wouldn't be in my conversation.
Who else is there?
I mean, Taumalolo, I guess, is definitely in it.
Ben Kennedy.
See, I think he was overrated. Bradley Clyde, like he would be in the conversation.
Yeah, he's got to be.
Who else?
And Bradley Clyde just makes the conversation too.
Yeah.
He finished in 2000. He hobbled through the year.
Yeah, he had at the end of his career was pretty sad, unfortunately.
Yeah. Did Paul Harrigan play in 2000?
I don't think he did. No, I think he. Oh, hang on, because I went to a.
No, he didn't.
When did he retire? Was it 99?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because at the end of his career was pretty rough too.
Yeah. So that's the thing. You want to try and add forwards in there, but it's hard work to do.
And I think that is because, especially over the last, from say 1990 onwards, from 1990 you had a lot of great modern day forwards because we'd moved out of the excuse me, the 5 metre rule into the 10 metre rule.
Yeah, that's a big, and that rule change alone allowed backs to dominate games a lot more. Sped the game up. It stopped being a forwards game where you just bash and barge through the middle all the time, and the backs just dominated play.
Yeah, and I also think from that point on, we've seen the depth of forwards. Excuse me, I still got a funny throat, eh?
Just a bit of Rona.
Yeah, it's just the Rona. I think that we've seen the forward depth get better and better over time since 1990. And it's, to stand out amongst forwards these days, you've got to be doing something absolutely extraordinary.
That's right.
And so that's why I think that you can cut that list down so much very quickly, because the real elite forwards, they stand out and they do it over a long period of time as well.
Yeah, that's right. Because one player I personally would have liked to put in there, but I know wouldn't get the award, would have been someone like Paul Sirenen.
Yeah, well, you know what? I thought about him because he was truly an elite forward, but he's fighting against a bunch of players that are just undeniable. That's the problem.
That's the problem, yeah. So and as I said, that's the sort of situation I have. People may think that there's too many, but that's just nonsense.
No, I've got no problems with it.
Because you think there's 20-odd players there?
Yeah.
Out of, 20,000?
Yeah.
No, it's not too many.
And it shows, I always think, and I said it before, when you look at a list like this, you want it to be a snapshot that you can look at that list and say, okay, these were the dominant players in these eras.
Exactly.
And I think that's what your concept does very, very well.
And that's right. And you can see the way the game changed. It sort of went from being playmakers. There was a period where it went to the forwards for a fair chunk.
Mm-hmm.
And then swung back to playmakers. As the game became more modernised, the playmakers came back into it again.
Yeah.
I think that's... I don't think there'd be... Obviously, because I come up with the idea, but I don't think what I've got there is that bad. It's something that the game should probably generally consider. And I've named every current immortal in there, so I've not left any out.
Yeah.
I've built everything around the already named immortals.
I like it. I really like it. It's something. I would like to put that on my list as a something. And if you call it, I don't know what you call it, but if you call it something, I think it's something that people will pay attention to, because it is. I think having the structure is fantastic for something like that. I think making sure every decade of the game, because no decade is more important than any other decade.
That's right.
And I think that making sure every decade is represented, and it really does. It shows the direct, lineal, champions of our game.
Yeah, and as I said, if you can get an absolute legend, Cameron Smith's a good example, that can play just one season into the next decade, then he's across 3 decades. So you can work him, or you can work around him.
Yeah.
If you've got one decade that's only got one standout player, name them alongside Smith for that decade, and then you can have 2 for the others if there's 2 for each one. Mm-hmm. And you've always got that one spot available as the decades wear on.
Yeah.
So it does make it a bit more easy to sort of manage who gets in and who gets out, because then you actually are only getting the elite of the elite. You're not trying to justify someone who doesn't deserve to be there.
The other thing is too, and I'll use Taumalolo as an example. If you say, okay, we're going to push Taumalolo's eligibility into the decade between 2021 and 2030. If somebody comes along that is better than Taumalolo, that's fair enough. He misses out.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't good enough to be named before that. And it means somebody come along and overtook what he was doing. And I think that I really do. It's a really good method that you've got there, and I think it would be great if the game adopted it.
I think this is something that really should be looked at. As I said, there's only 7 extra names I've mentioned there.
Yeah.
On top of who they've already got as immortals.
Yeah. And they're all worthy names too.
Yeah. There's a few that people aren't going to know too much about, which I've been planning on doing little bios on. So Arthur Halloway, many people don't know about him. He was a halfback for Balmain, the Roosters, Glebe, from the very early days. And then he became a coach, and he's possibly I think he's the most successful coach in the game's history. I think he's got 10 premierships as coach. Mm-hmm. No one ever talks about him. They always talk about Wayne Bennett as a super coach.
Yeah.
This bloke did it as a captain coach, and then as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable footballer. Duncan Thompson, I've spoken about endlessly. Harold Horder, unbelievable try-scoring freak.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Craig. The only best way to describe Jimmy Craig, success-wise, is very similar to James Maloney in the sense that it didn't matter which club he went to, success just followed him around.
Yeah.
But he was also one of the most uniquely skilled players out there, and could play in any role, and played nearly every single position, I think, except prop.
Wow.
On the field, and excelled at all of them.
Mm-hmm.
He was a huge reason about helping Queensland go from being also-rans and whipping boys to dominating the 20s in the interstate games.
Mm-hmm.
Huge reason behind that. Herb Steinort, another Queenslander, unbelievable forward.
Mm-hmm.
Never gets spoken about enough. Duncan Hall, I think pretty sure he's a Hall of Famer, as is Steinort.
Yeah.
Well, they all are. But Duncan Hall, regarded as one of the best forwards that game had until we had those Dragons teams come along in the 60s. Ken Irvine, highest try-scoring winger that we've in Australia. The rest are immortals.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, it's a great list. And it works. It's a system that works, and that's better than having someone arbitrarily, decide. Oh, I think I'll just name this guy an immortal this year and throw out the one rule we have.
Exactly. The other problem you get too is that everybody's going to start putting forward a whole bunch of players from the last 30 years, 40 years, and they're going to be judged as being greater than players from the first 40 years because no one saw those guys from the first 40 years play. And that's not fair.
No. And the thing is, too, a lot of the excuses are, well, no one saw them play. And it's like, we have so much documented evidence about the champions of our game from those eras. It's not like we don't know what happened.
Exactly. I mean, the Duncan Thompson one's a good one. The fact that even in 1990, he was still regarded as the greatest ever halfback the game had seen. And some of those people who were making those comments never saw him play because he finished playing in the 1920s.
Yeah.
70 years before.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a bunch of 70-year-olds that were on the judging panel or 90-year-olds on the judging panel for that matter.
Yeah.
So people were able to know based on what they'd heard, what they'd read, what they'd been, told from former players and stuff like that. That's the evidence you use.
Yeah.
And that's how we decided the Frank Burge, dummy messenger, Dave Brown, that's how we know that they should all have been inducted.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't use anecdotal evidence to induct 3 players, but then say that anecdotal evidence isn't enough to induct others.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's I never understood why it was the post-war immortals to begin with, and I was happy that they started putting the pre-war immortals in.
Initially, it was just to sell port, so they wanted people who were alive to help sell it.
To know, yeah, true.
That was it.
That is true, yeah. I bet that's all it was.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's just get the 4 most famous rugby league players in the game's history, and they're trying to make sure they've got someone who is current in this, like still playing. And we will make them immortals, and they can help us sell port. And it was too good a marketing idea and concept for the game's history to ignore.
See, what you need is a good name for it.
You don't like immortals?
Or do
you think it's tainted?
I think I don't want to say the immortals have been tainted, but I think that I think that what you've got is a unique thing. I think it is well thought out. I think that it is easy to understand, and I just feel like it would be cool if it stood on its own 2 feet as being what it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Should we call them then? Should these people then be called the Rugby League gods?
Ooh.
Feel Good talks about them all the time. Let's put names there.
Ooh, I don't mind that one, hey?
Or the Untouchables. Is Untouchables better than Immortals? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. What about, I don't know, Legends seems overused.
Yeah, you want something that sounds a bit more grander than... You want to outrank Immortal.
If we were running Indian Super League teams, we'd call them the Super Kings.
The Super Immortals.
The Super Immortals.
There you go.
You've got time to work it out.
Yeah, we just call them the Mega Immortals.
Mega Immortals.
Oh, yeah, that could work. Mega Immortals. The Rugby League gods. I might just go with that, I think.
Gods, the Rugby League gods.
Now, while we're on awards and naming things,
yes,
Super League have come out with their what was it, Dream Team for the 2020.
The 2020, is it Betfred Super League Dream Team?
Yeah, right.
Was announced.
Right said Betfred.
Yeah, and this was the first time it wasn't voted on by journalists, which I think that they got the winners from. Here, let me say, seven of players appear for the first time. Steve, they had some ratings way to do it. I can't remember what it was. I think it was from Man of Steel points or something like that.
Oh, yeah, it's based on Man of Steel points.
Yeah,
which is kind of like how we come to our Dalian Team of the Year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so this the Dream Team. Should I read it out?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so your fullback is Bevan French from the Wigan Warriors.
He's had a good season. Yeah.
Your wingers are Ash Handley from the Leeds Rhinos and Kristen Inu from the Salford Red Devils, 33-year-old Kristen Inu.
Sprightly.
Yeah, he's doing good.
A slender man.
Yeah. At the centres, we've got Toby King from the Warrington Wolves. I really thought it was going to be their year this year. And Conrad Hurrell, the what do you call him? Ever-present? Evergreen? Yeah.
Evergreen.
Yeah. Conrad Hurrell gets in from the Leeds Rhinos. Aidan Caesar is the halfback from the Huddersfield Giants. We both said he'd have a good year, and he did.
He's dominated in England, as we thought he would.
Yeah, we really did. And Johnny Lomax is the other halfback, so they don't do it half and 5/8. They just do two halfbacks.
Yeah.
So Johnny Lomax from St Helens.
He's there every year.
Yeah, so overrated. The props were Mike Cooper from the Warrington Wolves and Alex Walmsley from St Helens. The hooker was Paul McShane from the Castleford Tigers. The back rowers were Liam Farrell from the Wigan Warriors, overrated. And I always get this dude's name wrong.
Kalipi Tanganoa.
That's it.
There you go. He's from Wakefield.
Yeah, from Milwaukee. And then the loose forward was Morgan Knowles from St Helens.
Yeah, we call those locks in Australia.
Yeah, I know.
But there you go.
Yeah,
now,
it's a really good-looking team, eh?
If you put that team on the field,
mm-hmm.
does the England national side, beat that?
I would say...
Knowing in mind that they've got a few test players in there, but not too many.
I would say no. I think that they beat England, hey?
I reckon they'd beat England too.
Yeah, I think that they've got a better fullback. I like Conrad Hurrell better than any outside back for England. I like Aidan Caesar better than any halfback they're going to name. Johnny Lomax is a bit of an anchor. Yeah.
Well, Caesar would be the 7, Lomax would be the 6. I think Lomax works better as a running half than he does as an organising half.
I just think he is so overrated I can't even begin. I really do. I don't see it. I know that other people do, but I don't see it.
I just think he's the sort of player, if you give him the responsibility of organising and setting up plays and stuff like that, he struggles. But if you have him as a ball runner and take a bit of responsibility off him, you can get by with him. He's a handy enough player there. Caesar is a good enough organiser to do that on his own.
I would say that Johnny Lomax would not stand out in New South Wales Cup. I'm serious. That's my personal opinion.
That's fair enough. Yeah, the forward pack's not too bad. I do have raps on Mike Cooper. I thought he played really well when he was over here in the NRL for the Dragons. Big unit. So it's good to see he's still playing well.
I tell you what, Walmsley played all right for Great Britain last year, I believe it was. I think he was one of the few forwards that I have a feeling he got injured.
Yes. But he and Cooper, they're both genuine tradesmen. They said that they do all the hard work in the middle and they don't seem to shirk any responsibilities. They're good defenders. They bend the line when they run into it. That's all you need from prop forwards, really.
Liam Farrell, dark egg. I don't know. He's one of those Wigan. How many Wigan back rowers that are absolutely bog average do we have to pretend are good?
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm surprised with their second rowers. Tanganoa's not too bad, but I didn't think either of them were absolute standouts. But I didn't get to see every game either. So
why don't we just? It's like when they pretended O'Loughlin was good.
But he's an icon.
Exactly. And I don't really know why. It's like this guy's just hung around for long enough. it's like
longevity. That's all you need.
Yeah, this cunt's still here. He must be pretty good. I saw somebody on Twitter this week saying that if you look at the teams that do well over the course of Super League's history, and there's 3 of them, because one of them's dead, that you just realise that it's all about their junior development systems, and so that's why it's terrible that they're not having money in junior development systems over there. And it's like, well, they just buy everyone else's players, really. I mean, that's why they're better than everyone else. It's not junior development.
No, pretty much for the Australian fans who don't really follow much of the Super League, the way Super League clubs are run is pretty much the same way the Roosters are run.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about juniors. Just buy every other players.
Yeah.
From elsewhere. You'll be right.
Yep.
And that's kind of what happens when you've got a promotion and relegation system in a competition that doesn't have much money.
Yeah, why do I care who my youngsters are going to be who might be good in 5 years' time when I might be relegated next year?
Exactly. And, we can't plan for the future. We have to plan for survival.
So Wigan and St Helens made the Super League Grand Final. Yeah, can you think of a more boring, don't care scenario than that?
God damn.
I tell you what, I was
so disappointed in Hull too when they trotted out that garbage performance last week.
That's what Hull do, hey?
And Catalan just got completely destroyed by Saints the day after.
Yeah.
I went, man, I just wanted one of them to get through.
Yeah.
2 would have been gorgeous, but one of them, just one, please. And then, no, and I went, oh, fuck.
And the thing is, too, you'll see it this week, it'll be like, why isn't the national media paying attention to 2 small towns in northern England that have played each other again and again and again and again and again? I don't understand it. It's like, that's the problem.
That is the problem. It's been a problem that's been going on, and it's endemic in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can say it now, decades.
Yeah, we can. It'd be like, people don't like how many times the Storm make the grand final over here. And I get that.
Yeah.
But the Storm come from a city of nearly 4 million people?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just, I don't know. I was so bored with it. It could have been something really impressive. I know you and me were saying, if they both make the grand final, sit down, watch together. I just don't care about this game.
Nope.
Sad.
So boring.
Yeah, really is.
It's just always the same. How many times has St Helen played Wigan in the grand final in the Super League? Who cares?
Yes, exactly.
Who fucking cares?
It's such a wonderful rivalry. It's like, it's 2 small teams. Who gives a shit? Yeah,
we'll go through it. 2014, they last met in the grand final. St Helens won 14-6. 2010, Wigan won 22-10. 2000, St Helens won 29-16. But, they've played in nearly every... Well, St Helens, Wigan and Leeds have played in every grand final between 2006... won every grand final between 2006 and 2019. If you throw in Bradford, then you're going back to 1990, was it? 91? And then you got to throw in Widnes after that.
Yeah, that's how it worked. Okay, here's a question for you. What's more impressive, winning a Wnbl grand final or the Super League grand final?
Yeah, the first one.
I'd want to hear that story.
Well, look, let's be honest. At the start of the Wnbl season, no one's going to know who's going to win that premiership.
True.
You don't even know who the top 4 teams are going to be.
Exactly.
At the start of the 2030 Super League Premiership, you know which of the top 3 teams are going to be. Leeds, Wigan, St Helens.
Yeah.
It may not be in that order, but they'll be the top 3. It'll be the same in 2040. It'll be the same in 2050. The same in 2060 if it still fucking exists by then. It'll probably just be by then. By 2040, it'll just be a tri-series between St Helens, Leeds and Wigan.
So they'd save money if they did that.
Well, that's if they realise that they shouldn't be playing 40 games every year.
It's funny. I don't think the game over there is going to last that long, especially with the trajectory it's on.
It'll last.
You reckon?
Yeah, because I don't think the NRL alone will let Super League die. And I don't think I'm not saying that they'll invest money in it, but I think they will find a way to keep it struggling afloat, so to speak. Because they don't want the game to die over there.
I think that the NRL will have no choice but to just watch a bunch of morons setting their own house on fire and then saying, but at least we're warm. Because that's all Super League is.
See, the NRL, though, is run by businessmen, which the Super League has never been done by. So what the NRL will do, okay, is they'll go, you know what, if we want to expand this competition, we'll just wait until the people running Super League devalue the living shit out of it until we can buy it for $1. And that's what they'll do. And they'll go, right, we're going to clean it out and do it our way. And because they've got all the money and they've got all the authority and they know what they're doing, clubs aren't going to be able to have much of a say, if any at all.
Imagine if the NRL just went straight to France and said, hey, France, we want to invest in French Rugby League and we want to bring in a couple of expansion clubs from the UK. How cool would that be?
Imagine if the expansion clubs were St Helens, Leeds and Wigan.
I know, right? And the funny thing is, they would leave English Rugby League system in a second for the cash.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
That's why I think eventually they'll be bought by the Rugby Football Union. And I've said this, I think that the game over there will just be devalued to a point where the people that own certain clubs will see that what they've invested, it will just be worth nothing, and the Rugby Football Union will come in and say, hey, you think that just is worth nothing, we'll buy all the rights to the logos and the colours and the use of the stadiums, and you'll get some money out of this, and it'll be either that or they can just watch their money and just go down the drain. They'll have no choice, really. That's what I think will happen.
Yes. Now, one other thing.
Yes.
While we're talking about over in England, the Rugby League World Cup this week announced that they've just signed their richest ever sponsorship deal with Kazoo, an internet company.
Yeah.
£1 million. That makes them £1 million better run than the Super League.
That reminds me, how much was the deal with Lincoln Financial Group for? I can't remember. I just can't remember.
All the media releases I saw said that this deal was the richest one that the Rugby League World Cup has ever had before from a major sponsor.
Yeah. Well, that's good news.
Yeah.
I believe they still used cars.
That's what it is. There's an online car website or something like that.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. I love car websites, hey?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, what's better than a bunch of used car salesmen selling shit on the internet?
Nothing.
Fine by me.
Yeah.
If they're forking out the coin, I don't care what they sell.
Yeah, exactly. So good luck to them. But
I'd like to see them actually supplying second-hand cars for the entire Rugby League World Cup.
Oh, you know it.
A few Dacia Sanderos getting around.
They would be a bunch of second-hand Bentleys or something. You know how the deal works.
Dinted up and patchy paint jobs on them.
Yeah.
bunch of Jags that break down every 15 Ks.
Someone turning up at home in a 1992 Rolls Royce. It's like they even had, power windows back then.
You just know it'll just be a whole heap of Hondas, though.
Can't kill a Honda.
You can't kill a Honda. Everyone's driving around in lawnmowers.
Yeah. It's it's good news. I don't know where we're going to be with the World Cup. I think they're still being pretty ambitious.
They are. The Rugby League, World Club Challenge is going to be pushed back next year as well.
Oh, I heard it was cancelled.
I haven't heard it's been cancelled yet. I may not have got the more updated news. All I heard was that it had been pushed back, but they weren't too sure when they were going to play it because it was a very busy schedule next year. But last I heard, there was talk that they may play it mid-season.
Oh, that would be bad for. Because I can't imagine as the NRL team's going to fly over. There's just too many moving parts to sort out.
Yeah.
So if a Super League team comes over here and takes on the Melbourne Storm in mid-season form, they could lose by 80 points.
Unless Melbourne sends over a second string side
Yeah.
with Cameron Smith as captain.
Yeah. I guess that could work.
Yeah.
Send over their Queensland Cup affiliate.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
See how that goes. And they'll probably do it during the origin period, so they've probably got a lot of players off and available to play.
It'll be interesting to see a World Club Challenge during origin time with the Melbourne Storm with their origin players not in the team.
Mm.
I'd watch that game.
I'd be very curious to see how that went.
Yeah.
So that's there. Was there anything else? Oh, the West Tigers have signed James Roberts.
Yeah, James Roberts. He had a pretty sad ending to his South's career.
Yeah, he got a was that leave due to personal reasons or something like that from South?
Yep.
And so the Tigers signed him on a 2-year deal, I believe it was, and it wasn't a very expensive one, which is pretty rare for the Tigers.
Yeah, normally they pay overs.
Which may suggest that Roberts is on one of his last chances, I guess, as a footballer. Like, if he fails at the West Tigers, who's going to pick him up?
Well, the problem I think he has is last year when he was at Souths and he just didn't look good on the field.
No, he didn't fit in with the game plan there whatsoever.
And the thing is, when he was out of the team, they didn't miss him at all.
No.
And that's a problem.
Yeah. Mind you, he's coming to the West Tigers and he's replacing Moses Mbai, so he is an upgrade.
Definite upgrade, 100%.
Yeah.
I wonder where they put Mbai, though.
Well, it's been the source of conversation, I guess, for me on Twitter the last few days is because they've made Mbai captain, although I believe part of Tamo's contract was that he would be captain of the club.
Oh, really?
So if that's the case,
Ooh.
and Mbai's on the bench, he's expensive benchy, but he's on the bench.
You know what? He's a handy player to have on the bench. He's versatile. He's not going to come on and, set the world on fire, but he can play pretty much anywhere in the back line if you really need him.
Yeah, and he's not going to be on the field for 80 minutes.
That does help.
Mm.
Do you just eat his salary in New South Wales Cup?
I don't. I think the Tigers are going to need to have a genuine ball-playing 9 sitting on the bench all season next year. For just because Jacob Little is obviously the starting 9 now, and he is a very talented attacking player.
Yeah.
Reasonable enough in defence, but the amount of injuries he's had has meant that I don't think he's ever played an 80-minute game. So we're going to need, if he stays fully fit, we're going to need someone on there to help cover him when he can't play the full 80 minutes.
Yeah.
And if he does get injured, then we need someone there who can play in place of him. So we're going to need a genuine 9 on the bench, and Moses Mbai is not that.
No.
I've heard people say Billy Walters can play hooker. I don't want a makeshift hooker who we may have to carry for an entire season if Little gets injured again. I hope he doesn't, because he showed that he's a pretty handy footballer when he was playing, and he's going to get his first full off season this year, which is fucking relieving.
Yeah.
So I want to see nothing more than I want to see that kid succeed.
I saw some Tigers fans during the week saying that the Penrith Panthers should release Dane Laurie from his contract so that he could join the club.
Well, yeah, Laurie signed from 2022, and I believe the Tigers are looking at him as a fullback. So that means that Dewey will then have to move either into, well, I assume into 5'8", because by 2022, Josh Reynolds will be gone. So that would mean Dewey's going to be the genuine 6
See, because I called Dane Laurie in reserve grade in New South Wales Cup, and from what I've seen of him, he feels to me like a natural 5'8". I don't think he's a fullback. I know even Penrith played him at fullback, but I just feel like he's a 5'8".
Yeah, I'm not sold on him being a fullback either.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose the problem the Tigers have got is who's the better fullback, him or Dewey? Who's the better 5'8", him or Dewey?
Yeah.
So I don't know what they do there.
And Laurie's one of those players that Penrith can't keep all of them. And good luck to everyone that leaves the Panthers, because that's just how it works. But and I think it's fair to say at the start of the year he was probably vying with Burton and Luai for the 5'8" role at Penrith, and you know,
yeah,
it just didn't fall his way, unfortunately. But yeah, I really do. Every time I've seen him play in reserve grade, I've seen a 5'8". I haven't seen a fullback, and what I've seen of him at fullback in first grade has kind of confirmed it for me too.
Well, that's the thing. Usually, when you get those blokes who are a 5'8" who can fill in at fullback, they don't tend to be genuinely good ball running fullbacks.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Matt Moylan's a classic example.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all jokes aside, Matt Moylan does not run the ball back hard at fullback. He's a playmaker. That's what he tries to be the whole time.
Yeah.
Dewey's developed a decent enough kick return game at fullback. So I'd be inclined to persevere with him and keep him there, because I don't think Mbai's a very good fullback. But on the flip side, Mbai's defence is sketchy. And if you put him at 5'8", he's going to be a target. Whereas if he's at fullback, he doesn't have to do much tackling at all. He's just got to be positioned properly.
Yeah.
Most of the field kicks. So it's a tough one. Moses Mbai's just become he's become the West Tigers Kirk Gidley, really.
He really has. It's weird. We keep coming back to the West Tigers, and it's because it's such a weird situation. Like, I know that you follow them and stuff, but I know that I know from my point of view, I look at what they do, and I look at how they put their team together and stuff, and I just find it such a strange situation. That's why
it's chaotic.
It really is, and it's like if you said to me their starting front rowers that they start next season with aren't even at the club yet, I would be like, oh, that makes sense. Anything's on the table.
Yeah, it's just a weirdly run club, and they do it every year, and they struggle every year, and they don't change the way they do things, and it's baffling.
It really is.
It's insane. It is a genuine definition of insanity, doing the same thing all the time, expecting something different. Yeah,
and the other thing that shocks me is that there doesn't seem to be a plan there. You would feel like somebody at the club would say, look, we got to stop this, and we got to have a plan. We need to build our junior development. We need to just build a good pack of forwards, something, it's a scattergun approach.
It is, but that's, they're playing to their strength.
If you had to put your money on it, do they finish above 10th next year?
No.
Yeah.
How can they? Their two best playmakers all year this year are not at the club next year, and that's Benji Marshall and Harry Grant.
Yeah. And
Harry Grant took that team from being a wooden spoon contender to a 9th place contender.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have him next year.
Yeah.
Little's good enough to replace one of them, but there's no one there that can replace both, to replace the other one.
No.
That's a huge loss. And
when you throw in, their forwards are going to be quite a bit weaker if you look at the way it's going at the moment. It could get really messy for the Tigers next year, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, they've lost Eisenhuth, they've lost... Elijah Taylor hasn't been re-signed, and I doubt he will be.
Mm-hmm.
There was... I keep forgetting his name. Sam. young fella Sam, he's gone to the Titans. Josh Halloway is on the outer, and Tamo's come in. That's not a slander on Tamo. He's had a great year, but one forward will never replace three.
No.
Tigers learnt that from when they had Adam Blair there trying to replace two other forwards.
Mm-hmm.
Geniuses.
One's better than two.
That was the second worst decision the West Tigers have made.
What do you reckon's the worst?
Jason Taylor.
You don't reckon it was... I feel like the worst decisions they've ever made, and I put it in a collection, when they had all that money when they merged, and they just spent it all on old players.
No, that's just a typical thing.
Okay.
That's just typical. Like, they'd finished with Mick Potter. They'd paid out Sheens. And they thought the best possible option they had available to them was Jason Taylor.
Mm.
One of those options they had available to him at the time, and I know you're not a big fan of him, was Nathan Brown, but he's a better option than Jason Taylor.
Ooh, I don't know. I'm not a Nathan Brown fan though.
I know you're not, but are you that much of a Jason Taylor fan that you think he's better?
I'm not
than Nathan Brown.
I'm not a Jason Taylor fan, right? I think he's a pretty good defensive coach, weirdly. But I think that the thing that probably lets him down is his man management side of the game. But purely coaching, I would take him over Nathan Brown.
See, Taylor cannot coach an attacking structure to save his life.
Yeah, I agree. And it's weird because he was a halfback.
That's right. Defensively, he didn't. He was good in his first year at the Tigers, but they did not get better.
You know, and it was remember when he was at Souths? It was kind of a similar thing. Like, they started to look pretty good defensively, and then it just disappeared really quick. Yeah. I feel like I think that whatever it is about him, he just loses his players quick if he's the main voice. And, you know, I don't understand what that is. I think you'd have to be around him. He's a successful assistant coach. Like, he's in demand as an assistant coach, and not in demand, but, you know, he never has problems finding a job as an assistant coach. It's very strange that a halfback, and he was a pretty handy halfback, isn't really good at putting together a good attack.
Yeah, he's hopeless. And Nathan Brown, the one thing he can do is a clean out, and that's what the Tigers needed when Taylor came along, and it never happened. And that's why Nathan Brown would have been the best player for the best coach for the club then, because he would have just come in and he would have wore it on his shirt, I'm cleaning them out. If they don't like it, stiff shit. He would have wore it with pride and just moved on and cleaned him out. And we could have just ditched him after 2 or 3 years after the clean-out was done, bring in a decent coach with the money in the bank, go nuts. It just never got to happen. Ivan Cleary started that process.
I will say this about Nathan Brown. If you need someone to come in, get rid of a bunch of losers, and then have a team that doesn't do shit for years on end and not complain about it, Nathan Brown's your man.
Yeah, I think you can argue that he did leave Newcastle in a better place than when he started there.
Yeah, but seriously, how difficult was that going to be?
He did the same thing at Huddersfield. He did the same thing at St Helens.
Okay, Huddersfield's completely different. He changed a lot of the way that Super League was played by the way he coached in Huddersfield, right? Like, he went over there and they were like, what the hell's going on with Huddersfield? Like, he made them a really good team. I'm not going to downplay what he did there at all. And then he moved to St Helens and did what every single fucking St Helens coach not called Roy Simmons has managed to do, right? There's been some terrible coaches that have won Super League titles with St Helens.
I know.
But you know, I just don't rate him.
My point is, he hasn't gone to a club and made it worse when he left. Look, even when he turned up at Newcastle, he turned up there and that place was in a festering dog shit. and he didn't leave it that way. Sure, it wasn't in a position where it was in the finals, but he left it with a clean slate so that the next coach coming in had freedom to move the roster around, to make some purchases, to do what he needed to do to get that team successful and into the finals, which has happened.
Okay, I'll give you that.
And it's because he's not afraid to clean out players when he needs to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he's going to do with the Warriors. They're probably going to have 1 or 2 seasons where they struggle. I guarantee by the time he gets to his last year there, they're going to have a better roster than what they've currently got last year or this year. It's just what he does. He's not the coach you bring in to give your team premiership success. He's the coach you bring in when you need to put a broom through a joint and you set it up for the next coach. That's what he does. As I said, that's why I liken him to Brian Smith. He was the same thing. Yeah. You bring him in when you need to clean out and get him set up in the right direction.
True. Yes. Brian Smith has probably been the best at that.
Yeah, and he's a far better coach than Nathan Brown will ever be.
Yeah.
But he's sort of the epitome of that. He's the guy you come in to right wrongs and sort shit out and get things moving in the right direction. He just understands how to do that better than anyone else.
How weird is it with Brian Smith? You think about it this way. He brings that St. George team together, and they're in back-to-back grand finals, and they get beaten by an absolutely outstanding Brisbane team. Okay? He leaves there, goes to Parramatta, builds a machine of a team that they just happen to not be able to get the job done. You can say that, like, they had some real tough semi-final losses and stuff, and then they make the grand final, and then they run into Andrew Johns at his best, like at his absolute not playing any better, Andrew Johns. If not for those things that he ran into, like, it's not like he wasn't beaten by no one. Like, he'd be thought of as one of the best coaches of all time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really strange, but because he didn't win, no one thinks about him as like, if somebody said, what about Brian Smith as one of the best coaches of all time? Like, even you and me, we'd say, didn't win a premiership. Stop talking about him.
That's right.
It's weird how this game can be sometimes, eh?
Yeah, it's a cruel bastard.
Mm.
Was there anything else that we need to chat about? Footy world?
Michael Gordon did some Gold Coasty stuff, but we'll gloss over that.
He found a new spice for his coffee.
Yeah, Cartel Coffee is the name of his business, weirdly enough.
Check it out. Don't give me your phone number.
Yeah. Don't get the expensive coffee.
Yeah. Don't give me your phone number when you do the contact tracing thing.
Yeah.
Just get the drive-through. Wear a face mask. You don't need to worry about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And make sure smell the aroma. It's got a good aroma. His coffee. I've been told the aroma is lovely.
If you see the universe after your first few sips, you might want to question whether you got the right coffee.
Yeah, you might need a refund on that bastard.
Yeah. When you start seeing you look down at your arm and all you see is the blood vessels, that's a problem. Okay,
they're pumping.
Yeah, and they're pumping, and they're multicolored.
Yeah,
they look like they're pumping glitter through. You got a problem. Okay?
Yeah, that's right. You probably shouldn't have gone with a double shot.
Yeah, and definitely don't get a refill.
No, that's right. Do you reckon he has better coffee than what any place in Melbourne has?
Well, their coffee is famous around the world.
Yeah, it's compared in some places to puddles.
Exactly. I know that there are places in Italy where they say, our coffee's pretty good. Then they say it in this accent too. They go, it's pretty good, but it's not like Melbourne's coffee.
It's not like Melbourne's.
Yeah, Melbourne's is fantastic.
Yeah. They even use Italian names on their cafe things to make it sound Italian.
Mm. They all end in O.
Yeah, that's it. A Mario.
Big Frico.
There we go. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the news, isn't there?
Yeah, it's been quiet.
Nothing else happened?
No. This time next week, it's the awards.
It is the awards.
The King of Rugby League awards for 2020. We announced them exclusively on Fergo and the Freak podcast.
Brought to you by
Manscaped.com.
As always.
Yeah.
And keep your ear out too during the week on the Starting Block podcast.
Yeah,
because we just might be on there.
Was it that one we recorded for?
I just had to check my DMs.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Oops.
It'll be good.
We'll see how much of that 5-minute piece we gave them actually makes it to air.
5 minutes, I know, right?
I dare say they'll snip out the last 4 minutes and 54 seconds of it.
There's that possibility.
If they do, we'll put it up anyway.
Yeah, well, if they snip it out, right, and if they do, it's fair enough. I went for 5 minutes, but we will post it in its entirety. Like this week, we'll call it like the Starting Block tribute, because they've done 10 years. It was just pretty impressive.
That's very impressive.
I wonder how many episodes they've done in 10 years.
Probably as many as we've done in 2.
Possibly. It's funny, I see some people, like, they do rugby league podcasts, and they'll be like, they've been going for years, and they'll say, oh, we're doing episode like 130, and I'm like, are they even trying?
Yeah, come on, fellas, have a crack.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, put your back into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been a good episode.
It's been rather serious.
We've gone into some topics.
Genuine analytics.
Yeah, we had nothing planned.
Nothing planned. We spent a good hour chatting before it, wasting good content, and then we thought, let's just press record, see what happens.
Yeah,
here we are.
We really should do that. That history episode we've been planning.
Yeah, we actually had one lined up. And then you kiboshed it with some random idea, which I wasn't really fond of, and then we did this.
I know. I love the way that I messaged you, though, during the day saying, hey, how about we do this? And you're like, okay, I can sort something out. And then I jump on and I'm like, no, fuck that. Let's do something else. I'm sorry about that.
I'm like, all this work that I did for this podcast. Mind you, I did it probably about 8 years ago when I wrote the article, but, you know...
I liked my idea of let me just randomly pick a player off the website and go with that.
And then you pick someone from bloody Parramatta for crying out loud.
But I picked someone from Parramatta. I can't even remember his name now. And I'm like, let's just start from here. And you're like, how will we talk about him? And I'm like, he's a Parramatta player from 1947. It's the inaugural year. And then all of a sudden we're talking about stadiums and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, see, it works.
That's just because we just know how to talk.
I know. It's one thing we can do is talk.
That's right. I'm all right at people. You can tune into us at online at Twitter and Instagram at Fergo Freak Pod. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook, YouTube. Also check us out at our website, fergoonthefreak.com.
Yes, you can send us messages from there. Maybe our next one will be an email episode. How about that?
Sounds good. Have we got emails?
Yeah, we do.
Good. We'll do that then.
Yeah.
Don't forget to go to manscaped.com. Buy anything you want there. When you get to the checkout, put in NRL as your exclusive code. That's our gift to you, and you'll get 20% off. Free shipping. What more do you want?
Exactly. And you'll get smooth balls at the end of it.
Even better.
Mm.
So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Catch us all next time.